Welcome to Hollywood's Top 10. I'm Lynda Halligan, and this is the show that counts down everything in movies, so it makes perfect sense to have Reelz Channel movie reviewer Richard Roeper here with us today. Thanks so much for being here.
What's up, kitty cat?
What's up, Daddy-O? All right, we're talking about Oscar flubs, not people tripping up the stairway. We're talking about major mistakes when it comes to voting.
Yeah, sometimes they didn't even get the nominations right, Lynda. In fact, when we were talking about this show, a few of these, I thought, this can't possibly be right. They really didn't nominate this film, or they really didn't pick this actor, because you just think in your mind, oh, that role must have won the Academy Award, not so much.
Right, you think that 10, 20 years down the line, and then you look back and you go, how is that possible?
Because these are such iconic performers and such iconic movies, and you think, didn't that win the Oscar? Well, what did it lose to?
And we're going to talk about that, so let's get right into our first one.
Let's do
Number 10 on your list, Hoop Dreams, an incredible documentary about two inner-city Chicago kids, so you have a connection there because you're from Chicago.
Exactly.
They follow them for 5 years from high school. They dream of being basketball stars, not even nominated.
That movie, when it came out, the late Gene Siskel and Roger Ebert called it, one of the greatest documentaries of all time. And this was well before really the advent of reality TV and people getting comfortable with cameras. And the filmmakers got so close, and we really got to see the sometimes tragic, sometimes inspirational, sometimes heartbreaking story of these two young men. And somehow this movie didn't even get nominated.
Unbelievable. 250 hours of footage cut down to about 3 hours. Let's take a quick look.
Great.
And we should mention that Anne Frank Remembered actually won that year. Some people may remember that one, but the other four nominees, probably not. 17 years later, still talking about Hoop Dreams.
No, Lynda, almost anybody who becomes a documentary filmmaker says that Hoop Dreams was an influence. If you're going to get into being a documentarian, you have to watch that movie.
Absolutely. Great pick. All right, number 9, Alan Rickman from Die Hard.
Yes.
Not even nominated for Best Supporting Actor. Why? Because it was an action movie?
I think, Lynda, I think that's what it is. I think, like comedies, action movies rarely get their due. You could make an argument that Bruce Willis should have been nominated here, but Alan Rickman steals the show. He's the uber Eurotrash villain. So many other villains since then have been modeled after him. Anytime you're clicking around the channels and you see Alan Rickman as Hans Gruber in Die Hard, you have to stop. He's funny, he's menacing, he's interesting, he's mysterious. How could he not get nominated? He's
a great villain in the Harry Potter movies and a lot of other Sweeney Todd. Let's take a quick look at Die Hard.
Great.
So talented. Do you think he'll ever get nominated for an Oscar, and do you think he'll win?
I think if he does get nominated, he's got a great chance of winning because Alan Rickman is so popular and so beloved. He's one of those character actors, even if you don't know his name, you go, oh, I love that guy. You know he's going to make the role interesting.
Absolutely. In Love Actually, too, one of my personal favorites.
He was fantastic.
All right, moving on to one of my other favorites of all time, Paul Newman.
Right.
So iconic, so talented, nominated for so many Oscars over the years. He doesn't win an acting Oscar till 1986. Started acting in the 50s.
Yeah, Paul Newman, one of the great actors of all time, and it's great that he won for The Color of Money, but it was really a Career Achievement Award because the Academy had gotten it wrong so many previous times with movies like Cool Hand Luke and HUD, and even the original Hustler. Much better performances than he does in The Color of Money.
Which is interesting because it is the same character, Fast Eddie Felson. Really? Back in The Hustler, he wins for The Color of Money. Your favorite pick, though, of his?
My favorite Paul Newman movie and performance of all time is The Verdict. This is one of the most heartbreaking, powerful performances ever put on screen. If people haven't seen this movie, you got to check it out.
It's really good. Down on his luck lawyer in Boston. He's incredible in this movie. Let's take a look at that. So moving. How does it happen? How does the Academy miss someone like Paul Newman for decades?
Well, I just think it was, first of all, when he came up, it was almost like a Brad Pitt type of thing or a George Clooney. The guy was so good looking that people said, oh, can he really act? And then as he got older, people said, okay, he's great in this, but I can vote for him down the road. All of a sudden, he was, well into his career, and people realized, wait a minute, Paul Newman never won an Oscar? That's crazy. Yeah,
you really have to fight a lot harder when you're good looking, unfortunately. Welcome back to Hollywood's Top 10. Reelz Channel movie reviewer Richard Roeper is here with us today. We're counting down the biggest Oscar flubs of all time, in your opinion.
In my opinion, and it wasn't that hard to find 10 of them.
I'm sure there are even more than that, absolutely. All right, let's go on to number 7 now. John Cazale, an actor that a lot of people probably wouldn't know, but if you say Fredo Corleone in The Godfather, and of course The Godfather Part 2, they go, oh, Fredo, of course.
Yeah, his name has become almost like, not a punchline, but just part of the lexicon when people say, oh, he's the weaker brother, he's the Fredo of the unit, because of course, you have Sonny, who was played by James Caan, who was so strong and powerful, and Michael, who takes over the family, and then Fredo, who, betrays the family, gets shipped off to Vegas, but really has a very, it's a multi-dimensional character, and John Cazale does such a great job of portraying him as a really complex character.
And that, of course, Robert De Niro won Best Supporting Actor for that movie. Is it a case of just too many great performances in that movie? They couldn't give one more to him?
I think really, Lynda, yeah, I think in this case, it's, it's maybe not completely fair to go after the Academy because there were so many amazing performances. They should have just called the Oscars The Godfathers for a couple of years there in the early 70s. But John Cazale was so good, he should have been recognized.
Well, let's see how good he was in The Godfather Part 2. Sadly, he only made 5 pictures in his lifetime because he died at the age of 42, but such a talent. And here's another one, very talented, but overshadowed by her beauty, kind of like you were talking about with Paul Newman.
Right.
Marilyn Monroe, you think she should have gotten nominated for Some Like It Hot.
This is one of the most famous roles of all time, and people think, oh, she must have been at least nominated, but it's one of those things where after the fact, the role in the movie became much more iconic than at the time, and of course she had a reputation for being difficult that probably didn't help her with the Academy voters.
Right. Now, why do you pick this movie as opposed to a more dramatic role like in Bus Stop?
Oh, because, you know, because she could be so funny, and it's such a rare thing to have someone so beautiful and so sexy, but also really have comedic chops. She's working with 2 great comic actors here and holding her own.
Oh, big time. Let's take a look at Some Like It Hot. Jack Lemmon and Tony Curtis, such a fun movie.
Yeah, and you know, Marilyn knew how to play dumb in a very smart way. She plays it straight there. She's not milking it for laughs. She's letting Jack Lemmon have all the best moments and all the best lines, but he's playing off her beautifully.
Welcome back to Hollywood's Top 10. I'm Lynda Halligan here with Reel's Channel movie reviewer Richard Roeper, and today we are counting down his top picks for the biggest Oscar flubs of all time.
And Lynda, it's not so much that we're slamming the movies and performances that did win, we're just saying that these ones were better.
Right, because Forrest Gump, for instance, was a great movie. You know, a lot of people love it. Very quotable movie. Won for Best Picture. Tom Hanks, of course, won. Pulp Fiction, you think, should have won. It was nominated.
You know, when you look at this, it got a lot of nominations, but when you look back on this, and Forrest Gump's kind of a mainstream Hollywood entertainment. A lot of people, myself included, thought it was a little bit too long. Pulp Fiction set the tone for cinema for the next 20 years. People, you know, so many filmmakers were influenced by this movie. So many careers were resurrected. So many careers were launched. And just the style that Tarantino brought in, it was revolutionary. And for Forrest Gump to beat out Pulp Fiction, it's ridiculous.
It's a great movie. Both I like. Let's take a look at Pulp Fiction now. Samuel Jackson and John Travolta, amazing in that movie. Did it lose because it's too gritty?
It was really violent, especially at the time. I mean, a lot of people were shocked by some of the scenes in there. I think it might have turned off some of the older, more conservative Academy voters. But probably the most quoted movie, you know, anybody, any guy especially under the age of 50, you go 2 days, he's going to be quoting Pulp Fiction at some point.
And sort of a similar situation for your next pick. Raging Bull does not win for Best Picture. It gets beat out by Ordinary People, Robert Redford's directorial debut.
You know, Lynda, here's the thing. I think Hollywood sometimes is more starstruck than the average person buying Us magazine. Every time an actor directs for the first time, they're like, oh my gosh, Robert Redford, we have to vote for him. And nowadays, you know, 25 years, 30 years after the fact, Raging Bull is routinely listed among the 10 greatest films of all time in all the worldwide polls. You do not see Ordinary People on that list.
That's true. Such a well-done movie. Robert De Niro, of course, won Best Actor. That is the role. It's like Meryl Streep in Sophie's Choice. When you say this is the role to beat, you're talking about Robert De Niro in Raging Bull.
Yeah, it's like Brando playing Stanley Kowalski in Streetcar. There's just certain actors and performances and roles that are just perfectly melded together, and this is one of those.
All those fight scenes are so great. The directing, incredible.
Yeah, the beautiful black and white photography there as well. Just stunning.
Welcome back to Hollywood's Top 10. We have such a special show today. Reel's Channel movie reviewer Richard Roeper is here, counting down his top 10 Oscar flubs.
So much fun to go through these. It's almost just like if we could pick the winners, and you know what? We should be in charge,
we
quite
should.
frankly. Let's alert the Academy.
Never before has a boy wanted more. Richard Roeper wants more.
Yeah, I want somebody to tell me the last time they watched Oliver, or the last time some film class talked about Oliver, and we have 2001: A Space Odyssey up against it. Stanley Kubrick, one of the master filmmakers of all time. This is like Picasso losing out to that guy who shows you how to do mountains and lakes and stuff on TV. It's ridiculous.
Oh yeah, The Shining, Dr. Strangelove. I mean, the list goes on and on. He didn't win. He got nominated, but didn't win. Why do you think?
At that time, Lynda, we still had a lot of old school Academy members who weren't quite ready to recognize films like Easy Rider and 2001. There was a whole revolution going on in Hollywood, and this was just so different that I think it probably put some people off.
Kind of freaked them out, right?
More than a little.
Okay, let's take a look. Ow, hurts my ears. Sadly, Stanley Kubrick, doing all those great movies, he never won an award for directing, not an Oscar. He only won for special effects for 2001.
That's insane.
It is
just
insane.
Crazy.
On to our next one. I think a lot of people will agree with you on this one as well. Citizen Kane, largely regarded as the best movie of all time on so many different lists. Nominated for Best Picture, loses to How Green Was My Valley. I'll admit I have not seen How Green Was My Valley.
Join the rest of America in having not seen How Green Was My Valley. This is one of those, probably the most astonishing snub and flub and mistake of all time. And Citizen Kane was recognized at the time as a great work of art, but it was loosely based on a very powerful media mogul, and I think a lot of the voters maybe didn't want to tick that guy off.
Do we want to say his name?
I believe it was the Hearst gentleman.
Yes, very good, very good. All right, let's take a quick look at that. Orson Welles' masterpiece. Is it your pick for best movie of all time?
I think it's the most influential and the most important movie. It really signaled the birth of modern cinema.
Absolutely. Your number one pick is coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back to Hollywood's Top 10, Richard Roeper's Oscar flubs. Before we get to his #1 pick for the biggest Oscar flub of all time, here's a quick recap.
A documentary about inner-city kids and basketball scores high among critics, but the Academy ignores it. At number 10, it's Hoop Dreams. Number 9, Alan Rickman also doesn't get nominated for playing the ruthless psychopath Hans Gruber in Die Hard. At 8, after decades in movies and slews of nominations, Paul Newman gets his first acting Oscar for The Color of Money. At number 7, the Academy neglects to recognize John Cazale at all for playing Fredo in The Godfather Part 2. At 6, the legendary Marilyn Monroe gets completely snubbed for her acclaimed performance in Some Like It Hot. And we have Quentin Tarantino's big screen sensation at number 5, Pulp Fiction, being rubbed out by Forrest Gump. At number 4, Martin Scorsese's extraordinary depiction of boxer Jake LaMotta's life gets knocked down by ordinary people. At 3, Stanley Kubrick directs the landmark sci-fi flick 2001: A Space Odyssey, but loses to Carol Reed for the musical Oliver. And at number 2, largely considered the best movie ever made, Citizen Kane is not voted Oscar best. Instead, it's How Green Was My Valley.
And now for numero uno. We just mentioned Martin Scorsese. He loses. He directs Goodfellas, but he's beat out by Kevin Costner, who directs Dances with Wolves. Beautiful picture.
You know, it's a good film, but I think if you sat Kevin Costner down and you said, okay, who did a better directing job that year? Even Kevin Costner would say, Scorsese. I mean, come on. Goodfellas, every camera shot, every angle is just, so innovative and so interesting. Dances with Wolves is a nice, big, sprawling pick, and it's like, okay, Kevin knows how to wield the camera, but, I mean, come on.
Yeah, Goodfellas, such a good mob movie. Of course, he did win years later for The Departed, but let's take a look now at Goodfellas. Great. I really loved that one. Scorsese's best?
It's my favorite, and I love almost all of his films. That's my personal favorite.
All right, we have a little time for 2 honorable mentions. Go!
Apocalypse Now should have beat Kramer versus Kramer, and Shakespeare loved beating Saving Private Ryan. That's crazy.
You're talking 2 war movies should have beat out more relationship.
More substantial picks beating these slight, entertaining dramas and comedies. Absolutely.
Okay, some good picks as always.
Glad we had a chance to set it right, Linda.
Yeah, okay, now we're good. Thank you so much for being with us.
Linda.
Richard Roeper, so amazing. If you'd like more information on any of the movies we've shown you today, or to vote on upcoming countdowns, log on to our website, reels.com/top10. Also, let us know what you think about Richard's choices on our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Lynda Halligan. Who are you?
Richard Roeper.
That's right. Don't forget it. This is Reels Channel, TV about movies.